Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 109th episode of What the Effie. And in this episode, it is Effie solo. So, once in a while, I'll get on here and it'll be just me talking to you. And I solicited any questions that might want to be asked. Go ahead. I got a couple. So I'm just going to run through them. And then next week we'll be back with regular guests like we do normally. All right. So the first question I got is, what do you think about borrowers who have no problem stiffing their lenders and are actually indignant when lenders want answers? That's a good question. Um, yes, that is a problem, and that's why it's being asked. Uh, Whenever you lend, there are some people that are not going to behave the way that you would like them to, especially when it's within a community like we are. And sometimes borrowers choose to look at the lender as just a dude, a person, no big deal. Because if they were borrowing from the bank, they would never behave this way. They would know what would happen, if they didn't make their payments. But they somehow put it in their heads that because it's a human being and not an institution, that they may treat them differently. And I think it's not I think, this is wrong. This is not good behavior in any stretch of the imagination. But I've talked to a lot of borrowers and lenders. First, I've spoken to many, many lenders that have lost money. And, it doesn't really matter on the amount, because I had spoken to one person who had lost $13,000, and it could have been as much as, the same as 1.3 million, because it was everything he had to use to start lending. So it wiped him out. It's a large amount no matter what it is. But I've spoken to many, many, much more than I care to think, that have lost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. And this is a problem that I have been following ever since I started lending myself, which is almost 3 years now. I have had the opportunity to speak with borrowers. Call it whatever you want. They're usually willing to talk to me. And sometimes I've actually been able to aid in getting them to understand that this isn't cool and to start making payments. But really, I don't think I have that kind of influence over many people. But I still speak with the people who borrow this money, because I try to figure, what is it? Why? How do they get to the point that they can become indignant? And what I have learned is that because they're not dealing with an institution and they're dealing with a person, they often think, well, I'm a person too. This is the feedback I've gotten. And you need to care about me. And I was going through some difficult marital problems at that time, or I was going through some difficult health problems at that time, or the contractors stiffed me, and they just have expressed themselves as, I'm a human being, and that other human being should be caring about me. And if they don't care about me, if they don't care the fact that I got stiffed, or that my wife left me, or my husband left me, or whatever it is, my health wasn't good, then they're not being human. So why do I have to be human? I don't need to be human. I am only going to be human to people who are human to me. Okay. That's what I hear. I know it's just dead wrong. It's not the way that you should be dealing with lenders. lenders are in business and they've chosen to give you a break and to give you a chance. And if you're stomping on them, your reputation goes down the tube very quickly. But, what do I think of them? Yeah, well, I effing say whatever I effing want, and I effing think it's effing freaking wrong. And I'm glad that that has not happened to me. But I also don't hesitate in saying that if it does happen to me, I will take them to the full extent of the law and the full extent of whatever I have to my resources, meaning I wouldn't mind, I would not hesitate to, name them. Like naming them is supposed to be something really, oh, don't name them. Why? Why not name them? I would name them. So that's my answer. What do I think about borrowers who have no problem stiffing their lenders? I think they're schmucks. I don't care if it was your wife. I don't care if it was your own health or your child's health. The bank would not be saying, oh, well, let's give them a break. You have to talk with your lender, and you've got to aim to pay them back 100%. So that's what I think about that one. All right. And by the way, when I find out if I get permission from other people, I will name. I will name. All right. So the second question I got was, why did I decide to go into real estate? Could have done many other things. Why real estate? And this person didn't really know me that well. So very briefly, I started real estate when I was a kid. I was only 9 years old. From 9 until 11, it was 3 years. I was with my mom because she couldn't speak, I should say mum, because this was in Vancouver, and she couldn't speak English. So I went along as a translator. And I hated it at first, going into people's rooms, and my brother kept teasing me about, oh, you're a looky-loo. And other kids teased me too at school. But my mom didn't care. I still had to do it. And soon I fell in love with properties. I fell in love in comparing properties and seeing what's inside. Very quickly, I learned to ignore the possessions of people, but rather just looking at the condition of the windows, the conditions, what quality of doors do they have, what flooring, what heating system. And in those days in Vancouver, we still had, or they still had, coal burning stoves for many of them. So when we came across a gas burning stove, we were like, whoa, this one's really high tech. So I started young. And I really did like it, and I wanted to continue. But that enabled my dad to retire at quite a young age. He'd been working out of town, so that's why I went with my mom and not my dad. And he didn't think it was appropriate for me as a girl to be involved. He was very much a misogynist, a sexist, a racist, a homophobe, a nice guy, Anyhow, long story short, he kicked me out of anything to do with the real estate, and that was that. However, when I got married, I didn't. I married a Canadian, and I was the one that was involved with helping us to build our real estate. So when we moved to Boston, he had been accepted to the Harvard Business School, and I had gone to Boston State College to finish my degree in education. And surprise, surprise, we stayed afterwards, much to my chagrin. But anyhow, I changed that attitude after my daughter was born in Boston. But long story short, I started doing real estate again, and I did quite well. I was in charge of choosing our first home, and we purchased it in a very nice area. And this was over 40 years ago. Paid $125 for it. Within 2 years, we sold it at $317. Over 40 years ago. So translate that to today's money. We moved from Boston to Philly, and again, I was the one that was in charge of locating our primary residence. and purchased our residence at 315. And a couple of years later, 2 years later, we split up, and that house brought us double what we bought. And again, that was 40 years ago, 39 years ago. So a long, long time ago. And that house, I think now would probably be around 6 million. It was a beautiful house by the time I was finished with everything I wanted done, because I fixed them up. And I also purchased two duplexes in that time. So I was on my way, to doing real estate. But when we split up, he walked away with the borrowing power. And I hadn't come across creative financing yet. So again, I was not doing real estate. Fast forward many, many years, and my parents had passed, and my father rewarded me very appropriately by stating in the will that I was a good for nothing female that did nothing but run away and take his money and blah, blah, blah. I was all bad. And my brother, because he had a what that boys have, the girls don't have, he was the prince. So basically, there were 5 homes that were built in the estate, and he decided it was fair to give 3 of them to my brother, as well as hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. Well, I was allotted to 1, and he still thought I should get none, but he had been told by the lawyer he should give something, so he gave me 1, and my sister got 1 also. So that's when I decided, nah, it ain't happening. My dad is not going to keep me down even from the grave, because he kept me down my whole life. And my brother, who I considered to be absolutely useless, had paid rent almost never and had a lot of kids, because he thought that my dad was going to leave the money to the grandkids, but he didn't. So that was funny. But my father supported everything for the kids. And anyhow, be what it may, my brother thought he was privileged to getting everything. So I started the biggest battle I've had, and I worked 6 jobs at one time to be able to pay the lawyers, and I was very happy to be able to do that in order to overturn his will, which wasn't really that hard because he was too dumb not to put, my father was too silly not to keep certain prejudices out of the will. He just put them all in. And I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because in British Columbia, if a will is based on sexism or homophobia or hate for some reason where the person can't help it, you can't help it if you're born gay. You can't help it if you're born black, or if you're born a girl, then the province will overturn it. So that got overturned. And, what was less than 20%, much less actually, that my dad wanted me to get, he wanted me to get nothing, but he gave in to me getting less than 20%, was able to go up to 37%. So now I was able to go ahead and start at a later age to do what I want to do, which is real estate. I love real estate. It's in my blood. I can't really step into a property. Commercial, yes, I haven't paid attention much to that. But whenever I step into a property, I'm always assessing the house. I'm always assessing what were the builders like, who lived here before, how was it cared for. And I might just be visiting your house for tea. Sorry, it's in my blood. Anyways, what I have done since, and the estate isn't fully settled yet, but at the ripe old age of about 68, I finally came into some funds. I purchased whole life. I put most of my money in whole life, and I've been taking it out from there to be able to work in real estate. I have amassed a few assets. I have my first co-living property in Charlotte, which is mine 100%. And I call it my tuition because it's a disaster when it comes to economic situations. but I love the house, and I'm trying to make it work. And I'll do a video on that sometime. But I'm finally back into building assets. I have owned an Airbnb with Abraham Gray that we've now sold. Um, and then I will be doing more co-living, but not in Charlotte. I'll be doing more in Atlanta. And the other thing that am doing is lending. I started lending um, when I moved to the States and came into my funds. I've done quite a few EMDs, and I'm not taken by EMDs. I think they're very touchy. There's so many little things you got to do. And you can lose EMD. People lose EMD. And I'm not crazy about EMD, but I've done EMD, I've done PML, I've done PMP, fix and flip. I've done a bit. I wouldn't say, like I'm supporting myself in any stretch of the imagination, but I've done my first six-figure lend, so I'm on my way. And more recently, I have settled specifically on transactional funding. So on the asset side, it's going to be co-living, and on the lending side, it's going to be transactional funding. If you don't know what transactional funding is, it is double closes, it is seller financing, and also EMD. But I won't be doing EMD. So I'm only going to do transactional funding. Oops, sorry, guys. Transactional funding with that's funny. I tell everybody to turn off their phone, and I forgot to do it when I'm going by myself. But anyhow, seller financing and double closes. All right. Now, the next question that I had was, what advice would you give a busy professional who wants to invest in real estate but doesn't have time to? Okay, if you don't have the time to learn about this, I think you need to align yourself with a party who can do that for you, whom you really trust. I'm not taking partners on for assets, but in my lending business, I will be looking for raising funds, raising capital. Absolutely. So you could do this with assets if a person is someone you know and they have to have experience. Don't do this if they're just starting out. Make sure they've done a number of them. Make them show you the HUDs. Make them explain a little bit. Test their success rate. And if you feel like you totally trust them and that they have a good success rate, you have to use the right paperwork to secure yourself. But yes, you can actually purchase assets in a passive way where the other partner is doing the work and you're just bringing your funds and you both gain from the results. So for assets, you can do that, whether it's single family, co-living, Airbnb, multifamily, commercial, you name it, you can do that. The other thing that you can do is to lend, but you have to be very careful. Don't you lend. Instead, find a party that you really trust, that has an excellent record, and work through them. And again, you never send money to an individual. You always send it to title. Or, it could be escrow through, and it could be an attorney, because in some states they use attorneys. So you can actually do quite well by lending, but you have to know what you're doing. And meaning you've got to know who it is that you're working with, period. And I would want to ask, who have they lent to? I would really do my homework to make sure that they're legitimate and that they provide the correct paperwork for you, and you can do that. So that's the last question there that I covered. And the only other question I had is, I've heard that you don't take partners and you do it all yourself. Why? And all I can say is um, I had been working by myself to quite a degree, but I've also had partners. So that's not entirely correct. The co living property that I have in Charlotte is 100% mine. Yep. But the co living that I will be doing in Atlanta will be with JVs. I have two separate partners that I'll be working with or am working with. Um, and I did an Airbnb, as I said, with Abraham. That was, a JV. And I had also lent money with um, Deal or No Deal, which was Pace, Morby, and Abraham. I did that together with their team. So I've done a fair amount with other people. Um, I did do lending by myself until recently. But because I was by myself and because there were so many, um, you know, people who are willing to take and not care, I call them snakes in the grass, I really didn't start as aggressively as I am now. Now I'm actually in business. I'm in business with my partner. So I've got a couple of partners to do transactional lending, and so that's not going to be by myself. And I also have a wholesale that's a JV. So sorry, but there was a little bit of um, incorrect information there. I have worked by myself a lot, and I have been told by a very powerful person that I should always work by myself. And it threw me off and made me stop, made me think. And I wasted about 4 months before I realized, no, that might be right for you. But for me, I actually do like JVing. So um, I think two heads are better than one. Um, you can go wrong more if it's just you. I like people. So yeah, that's that's where I am on that. Okay. So this is a relatively short um, episode, but I'm happy to have answered your questions. Um, I want to talk about one other thing that's just on my mind, and it has to do with mentors. Um, there are a gazillion mentors out there on YouTube land, and they take a boatload of your money. And I've joined a fair number of mentorships. I've been with Tim Brantz. I've been with Anderson Advising, with Sub2, with Gator, with Abraham. Um, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a few. Yeah, I'm positive I'm forgetting a few. And I think mentorships are good for you to be able to expand your knowledge base and also your contacts, because in many ways your net worth is your network. That idea of how quickly they're and closely they're intermingled is true. I would like to say that with the mentors I have, I don't always agree with everything that they say. And I remember the first few times I met Pace, I would be arguing with him, and others would be like, "Oh my God, she's arguing with Pace." But hey, I just give my opinion. So I think it's okay and you should be able to state your opinion towards your mentor, because if it's always like they're up here and you're down here and you're never allowed to question them, I would caution you. I will never do that. I think that if the mentor is a true um, giving mentor, they're going to be more like this, and then sometimes you'll pass them, and it's really more about helping each other. So be careful about the position you take when you're with a mentor, and also when a mentor helps you. as you know, um, Pace obviously is a very big helper. He's helped many, many people, and same with Abraham. When when you get close to people and they actually help you, you need to be super thankful. You need to give um, thanks for what's happening there, and to understand if they're giving and you're receiving, you should give thanks and you should give to other people. So be careful about trying to um, work against them in any way, or to own them in any way, because that is extremely small minded. Um, they are, well, I would not be able to be owned by anyone. And I don't think that those two mentors ever really tried to own anyone per se. And I think that if you're trying to capitalize on them and you're basically biting the hand that has fed you, that is not wise. People will see that, if that's how you're behaving to someone who has helped you and guided you, then, how are you going to be towards me? So, you need to be very, very grateful. I feel personally, this is my own personality, but this is how I feel. I feel all the things that I am getting from our communities and through people like Ryan Schwarb and Michael um, Manatsakan, who needs to change his name to Manat. Okay, it needs to be Michael Manat. Okay. Listen, my name sucks too, Effie Coal Beans. Okay, scrap it. It's just Effie. All right, that's hard enough. But when I get from people, I feel very grateful and indebted, and I kind of look around to think, well, who can I help? You know, what am I going to do when I know more? I know what I'm going to do. I need to help. I need to help others. So I will finish on that note. I think that it doesn't really matter if it's a one-on-one mentorship or a huge organization. If you're learning from someone, be grateful and be thankful and look to give back 10 times over. I believe in karma. I believe in karma. Yeah. Karma's waiting for my dad on the other side. I just feel like, if you don't get, if karma doesn't get you now, like in this life, trust me, it's going to get you on the other side. Anyways, I thank you. Please do make some comments. Which of the 4 questions or 5, whatever it was most interesting to you? What was your biggest takeaway? I'd like to see more commenting, and I'd like to see more liking. I need to start asking for that. I find it hard, but I'm going to, because I know that will help with what the Effie, and I want to help as many people as I possibly can. All right, everyone. Thank you, and we shall see you next week, back with regular guests. Bye now.